Good morning, y'all. It's 9:30. Thank you for joining us on another edition of Mastermind reference to short sale. I'm curious, and y'all can speak as well. How many people have done short sale in the past?
I've done one.
Okay.
Were you looking to make that full screen? Was that what you were talking about, me?
Yeah, but see, I got this huge, huge, huge screen, and I don't know when I share it that it will allow me to share the full screen. I mean, I'll do it real quick, but
I
it's
mean, you see the little present thing down by the.
yeah, right here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
When I do that, it becomes this. And can y'all see it? Or does it disappear?
yeah.
Oh, you
No, I
can?
see
Okay,
it.
cool. Awesome. All right, then we'll do that. So, really quick, I don't know if you guys, how many of y'all been in the industry for a minute, that you gone through during, downturn of the market? Anyway, okay. Jeremy, okay. Jeremy, well, okay. All right, y'all quiet group this morning. Got it. All right, cool. So what I'm seeing from the compliance end in the back right now is that we currently have 3 short sale in our pipeline. So I do see that as a quasi trend, so to speak. And just want to help you guys when you do have situation like this that you know what to do. So a lot of time for those of you that are listing agent, when you have a conversation with your client initially, you're trying to see what their goals and their motivation is, right? So, if there's any conversation where you feel like there is a red flag on the conversation, then you may want to ask the next question, which is, you've done your CMA, you've done your comp, and you know this property should sell based on this property condition and where it stands right now. It should be within certain range. And when you're discussing repairs with the seller is very hesitant, say, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to sell as is. Or they come up with a number where you feel like I got to have at least X amount of dollars. So these are some of the red flags when you initially do a listing presentation that you need to kind of just dig a little deeper with your client to make sure that you understand their position. Because sometimes that may not be the case. Sometimes we have clients out there that decide I got to have X amount of dollars, and that's the end of the day. And you at the end of the day you have to do what they would like to do, and you also have to decide whether or not this is a business for you. Um, and what I mean by that is that I went on a listing presentation. It was, believe it or not, it lasted 3 hours, which is more than I normally do for any clients. But the client had a lot of questions, had a lot of items that they were asking. And when I walked through the house, I said, these are what I consider um, minor defects that would hinder the dollar amount that you're thinking about selling it for. So, but at the end of the day, we were about $100,000 difference, and I just couldn't see the property selling for $100,000 more than what's going around in the neighborhood. And not only that, we were also in a position where the interest rate was really high. So, I mean, once again, this is your business. You guys can say, I'll take it, that's great, but understand whatever marketing dollar that you spend in advertising and photos, that is a cost. Now, in my earlier day, I also have taken a listing knowing that it's not going to sell, but I was trying to get my name out there. So that's okay, but just understand what your position is and your client position. So you guys will do obviously your CMA before you get to the client's house. And typically I do it based on the age of the home because sometimes you may be in a subdivision that have multiple phases. And each phase is maybe 5, sometimes 10 years apart. So there is a difference in a caliber of built after it's been 5 to 10 years. So make sure you do that, and also square footage. And basement does matter as far as sellability and quickness of sellability. The property condition, obviously, you guys will walk through the property and look around, and you know, we all love pets during pandemic because that was the thing to do. And I love my dogs. I have them. I always had dogs. But with that said, sometimes when you're in a distressed situation, the last thing you want to do is managing your pets. And some pets have a tendency to chew more than others and destroy and what have you. So, you know, these things are things you take consideration when you look at the property. On the average, a short sale can be 15 to 35% discount value. And what I mean by that, that is based on property condition. Okay. If the property's got, like there was one that we looked at, the septic pump, the sub pump is not working in one of the property we looked at. And sometimes the HVAC is on the teetering edge, and they know that. And sometimes the roof may be an issue. So this is where some of the higher discount comes because the repair is much greater than the average. Okay. These are things you need to take notes on because when you start talking to bank, these do come into play. So the other topic will cover is initial letter to seller's lender with authorization. You do need to partner up with a good attorney and getting a ALTA or HUD statement. The buyer's agent is buyer. What happened if you present a short sale where when you're co-oping with another agent where the buyer agent is the buyer? A lot of times the bank will not allow any compensation to the buyer broker. Okay. Um, and also one of the things that the bank will ask is a wet signature, okay, on the earned leave from Didnum to make sure that this is not a family kind of transfer where you're selling it really low because you know all, and the seller's trying to make the house worse than what it is. And on the average, it's about 30 to 90-day response time for short sale. And if it doesn't work out, cash for key, you know, I'll talk about that in just a few minutes. Any questions so far? Okay. So during your listing presentation, find out seller is resisting to list at their fair market value. So if once again, if you feel like that they're not wanting to list the fair market value, they have a really um, high discount, that may be indication that they may be distressed property. And a lot of time as a seller's agent, I do recommend if you have that extra 5 minutes, go and look at the municipality because if any short sale or any pre-foreclosure property, what have you, typically it is advertised on the local newspaper. Okay. Um, so that can I let you know whether or not this is a potential short sale. Find out if the seller has a last statement from the mortgage lender. Okay, typically that can be done online. You may have some folks that are computer challenged and they may not be able to do that. And they will have to pull a actual statement. So that will slow the process. And what you need to do, make sure you let the seller know time is of essence because the longer we drag out, the potential of seller foreclosing on that property is very likely. Ask them how long has it been since they made a payment, because this will give you indication whether or not they're near the foreclosure line, and your strategy may be a little different than just short sale, or you got a very narrow window to get things done, and it involves cooperation from all parties to get it done. The other thing is that has a seller gone through a modification during any time of the loan? I know that sounds weird, but we actually had a transaction that we were getting ready to close the week of closing. Of course, the attorney, so the way it works is that you get a buyer proof inspection, you know, the buyer jumps through the hoop, make sure all the documents in and get approved or right before the CD's out. That's when most your lender will order title work. Then the reason being is that most your closing attorney will not pull a title prior to that because We all know in a transaction, not every transaction go to closing. And so just like us, when we agree to list a property, and sometimes that listing may not come to fruition for whatever reason. Okay, seller change your mind, what have you. So you would expend some marketing dollar. Same reason as closing attorney, they will not pull title because it costs them money to do that. Okay, and so we were in the transaction in the middle, and right, like I said, about a week, about 10 days prior to closing, the attorney, because we had got appraisal, everything was good on the buyer. So the lender asked for a title, and when the when the attorney pulled the title, then we found out the seller had a loan modification. So whatever number we offered at the time is below what the current payoff plus a $24,000 loan modification. So now we're having to pivot and basically turn this into a short sale. Okay. And so just make sure when you're talking to a seller about short selling, ask them about if they had any loan modification. If they give you any indication, say they're not sure and what have you, the best thing for you to do is partner up with an attorney that will help you and pull a prelim title. They won't pull the full title, they'll pull prelim title. And so that can help you to see where the seller is, whether or not the offer you made is suffice for the loan payment. Or you may have to go up a little higher if you want to do a regular sale, but if not, it's definitely a short sale. So that's what happened with us on one of the short sale. We currently have 3 in our pipeline. 2 was upfront. We know we're short sale. The other one turned into a short sale midstream of the transaction. And I know that can be very frustrating for most of you because you're thinking, hey, we're good, we're ready to go. And then to come up with something like this, now you got to basically sit still for a little bit and wait for the other party to the seller's lender to their due diligence. And just because you guys agree on a number, it doesn't mean the seller's lender is going to take that number. Okay, they're going to evaluate the market analysis, what is the distress, what or not. If the area has any recent foreclosures, or if the income, the median income for that area has dropped, and also a couple of other economic distress factor they look at before they would just blindly give you a short sale. No longer is it like in the past where during downturn market, everybody was taking a short sale because the inventory was plenty. So anyways, any questions so far? No? Okay. All right. So first thing you want to do is get an authorization letter. So what you want to do is keep it short and to the point. And this is a sample that I sent out to all my agent that is maybe looking at potentially doing short sale. You got to put today's date, short sale department for whatever bank it is. Sometimes it can be loss mitigation. You got to put the loan number, put the client's full name. So if you have Mr. and Mrs. Smith, you need to include both their full name and the last 4 social security of both the parties, the grantees, and also property address. And, basically a short letter. Due to hardship, I'm unable to maintain my home at property. I'm assigning basically Neil Mathis with maximum 1 catalyst to become my short sale real estate representing and selling the above property. Neil Mathis says, have permission to speak with you in reference to my loan. Please call me at, now this is a seller's phone because the lender has to make sure they validate the seller's information before they add the agent as authorized speaker on the seller's behalf. So and then you put your agent's name in here and your information. your email. Sincerely, the client does need to wet sign this. Normally, what you do is that you call the bank, who the lien holder is. If you want to, you can Google them pretty quick online and look for loss short sale department or loss mitigation department. And you should have a number online that you can reach out to and have a conversation with them. Said, my name is Ming Richardson. I'm representing John Smith on this property, and unfortunately, the client has gone through some really hard time, and we need to start a short sale process. They will give you some paperwork, but before they do that, this is one of the things that they have to have in order even to talk to you. So, if you need a copy of this, email me or Neil. I'll send you a copy of it if you want, for anybody else that wants it. Okay. But any questions so far? Oh, okay. All right. So some of the expectation from our party, discuss the nuisance, I think, sorry, that's mistypo, a short sale. What I mean was nuance. I think that's what it is. Request seller to present the home in the best condition. Even though I know a lot of time when they're short selling a property, the home typically doesn't look that great. Now I have seen some short sale that actually looks decent. Um, but most of the time, people are short selling are in a financial distress. So what they're doing, they're not doing any maintenance of the property. They're not doing anything at all. Okay. Um, Matter of fact, they know that they may file a claim on something and not really do that particular claim, but keep the money. So I've seen that happen as well. Make sure you email seller short sale brochure from MLS Transaction Desk or remind there is a brochure about short sale. So when you do your exclusive brokerage listing agreement, please email that to them to kind of give us some idea what short sale is. If not, already had a consultation with them, what to expect. Um, One of the benefit is that they can actually stay in a home that live in to save money, to move to the next property. Not very often have I ever seen where a seller that is getting ready to go in foreclosure or short sale, that they pay their mortgages. And so this will allow them the ability to stay without disrupting, but understand they do have to move at some point. As an agent, you can assist them to find rental property, and in some circumstances, this is very rare. In my career, I only had one that did it, and that was during downturn market, where they actually were able to buy a new home with a lower monthly payment. But with that said, you got to find a lender that can do it. And two, the other condition is that they never skipped a payment. Okay, because one of the death sentence for any lender is that anytime you are late in any payment is automatically a 6-month extension from the time that you made a late payment. So that's just something that we can't control. And, the lenders are our gatekeeper, to our buyers' ability to buy. So once again, I had only seen one in my lifetime where a buyer was able to purchase another home simultaneously as they were selling their short sale property. Rare. Now, a lot of seller will ask you, said, why would all you want to do? Why wouldn't I just let it go in foreclosure? Explain to them that short sale, the credit drop on that is much less. It's about 100 points typically less, versus a foreclosure. And not only that, for a loan purpose, when you have a foreclosure, the time for you to buy again is much as a year longer versus short sale. So there are some benefit and doing short sale, versus just let it go in foreclosure. And I know that a lot of folks, when you're distressed, it's hard to even imagine doing something that, that's not for your gain to a certain extent. So, um, And also, when you do a short sale, you have the ability to control when you move to certain extent because you'll know in 30 days when you have to move. You'll know when the dead drop date is. And sometime in the short sale, like I said, not every loan is due close. So sometimes you may have a short sale for one party and that thing may have um, basically fall through because buyer had a circumstances. So it allows the seller some more time to stay in their home and save more money in that aspect. So and I seen one where buyer is asking for temporary occupancy. Um, yes, but it's also up to the bank whether or not they will approve that. And that's reason being is that they want to make sure there's no fraudulent claim on short sale and what have you. So each bank acts a little differently. So when you do talk to them, make sure they'll give you a list of expectation, and it's probably typically about 3 pages. Tells you this is the sale price, this is the compensation, this is the day you have to close by. Okay. And obviously the bank's not going to do any repairs. Okay. So they're very, and there's a couple of documents after they approve it. One of them is Arnlink. So if your short sale doesn't work out, the other thing that I have informed some of my agent who's currently in short sale, basically, the thing is that if they do foreclose on the property owner, 9 out of 10, they probably will offer what we call cash for key, meaning they'll help the owner move out because the last thing they want the owner to do is damage a house on their way out because they're being spiteful. During downturn market, have we seen that? Absolutely. I've seen people taking spray paint to the wall and say horrible things just because they're upset because they feel like that they're being forced out of their home for whatever circumstances. I understand emotion can get really high, and there are some people that will move all the appliances out of the home, excuse me, and try and sell some whatever asset they can from the house. So for the bank, it's easier not having a house damaged and offer uh, a seller what we call cash for key. If it does go into foreclosure. Even with foreclosure, you'll know what the day of foreclosure, and most likely someone's going to buy it or the bank will take possession. If the bank take possession, then it will go through probably another 30, 60 days before you have to be out. But you will definitely, the owner will definitely get a notice on that. And as an agent, if it doesn't work out, you can call the bank and ask if you can get a listing from them. So it is not a dead end street. Just want you to know that there are options, and it's about asking the questions. Anybody have any questions, remarks? Down through short sale?
I have a couple questions, man. One, it's been a long time that I've had a file like that. Number one, do they usually have to be behind or delinquent for them to consider a short sale?
No. So this is where that one unicorn we had, where they maintained their payment and they were able to get a lender to finance another home. Let's say, just hypothetically, let's say their monthly payment was 3,500. They were able to purchase another home with a monthly payment around about 2,500, which is $1,000 less um, their current payment. But the thing was that they were never ever late in their mortgage payment. But they knew that either someone in the household was ill and the income is getting ready to be cut in next 6 months. So they take very much a very proactive stance from that and told the bank, we are when a member is sick, we're not expecting to, me to maintain that income level, and therefore we need to short sell because we bought it and the market maybe wasn't doing so well. And by the time we list it with an agent, sell it and everything else, we're still gonna be about 20 to $25,000 in the hole. And so the bank will look at that because honestly, I think most your bank will look at that and take it because for most of you that doesn't work in the back end of from the bank's perspective, it actually costs them a lot of money to go through attorneys, the advertisement, the property preservation company to come in and do all that. And it also is another average about 6 months sometime before they can even take possession. And that's saying that the municipality is cooperating and get you on a docket within X amount of days. There's some municipality that do not get requests the bank has immediately on the next round of Tuesday or whatever it is. Sometimes there's a delay on those. So yes, you can definitely start a short sale, probably become a pre-foreclosure if your client know where they are right now and where they're going to be in 6 months.
Okay, my second part is back in the day when I had one, the
Hmm.
bank really didn't give me specifics on how much the compensation will be, all the details until we actually got a contract. And that's when I see that they really gave me more details. Has that changed?
No. So your thing is that list the property, get it under contract. One of the things you have to do is that I think that's my next slide. Hang tight. Okay. When you list, make sure your private remarks said that this is a short sale. Okay. Um. So once you're under contract, one of the things you have to do immediately is contact the closing attorney. Once they can pull a prelim title where it kind of it's like lender doing a soft credit pull. It has all the public records, but it may not have other that's questionable, if that make any sense. So the attorney can do a prelim title pull and kind of get a better understanding where the seller's financial situation is and how the number works. And any short sale at any time, seller will not get any money, period. And this is why it's called short sale. All right. Was there a third question, Linda?
No, that answered both of them. Thanks.
All right, so once you're under contract, this is where everybody kind of understand and expect the expectation. Negotiate contract where you sell may need some temporary occupancy time to move. Ensure short sale of the exhibit is part of your contract. Now, the bank may have their own form, and that's okay, but you need to get yours rolling immediately. Okay. Um, so understand that due to the nature of discount and the sale price, typically, like I said, is 15 to 35% less, depending on the condition of property. There are no repair from the bank. They're not going to do any repairs. So that's it. So if you have a cash buyer, perfect. If you have loans, and as an agent, when you walk through, it's an FHA loan, and you see there's a handrail missing, that could be an issue because FHA is not going to allow it. Now, if you have a very motivated buyer, let's say I'm getting this house for 35% discount. So the buyer's like, I don't care. I'll do the repairs. If I need to do a 203K and convert, 203K is FHA repair loan, what have you. And some buyers, for some instance, may have the money to do the repairs. And they're fine risking that with that 35% gain in equity. So as an agent, you guys need to do a whole harmless form to where neither party holds each other harmful for the repair that needs to be done. Prime example, the one that we told you that switching the midstream, we knew that they were pre-foreclosure because the agent did her due diligence and pulled pulled a file of the seller and noticed that their property address was, well, one, it was listed 35,000 below the market value, and two, when they walked through it, they knew the HVAC wasn't working properly, meaning there's a couple minor tune-up area. It's fairly new, but because the gentleman does fix and flip, so he knew what was wrong with it, and he was okay going in knowing that this has to be repaired if flagged by appraisal. So we did a whole harmless, and the buyer, we put that in writing that all party agrees that either party will hold each other harmless if the transaction does not close. Okay. And so, once everybody has certain expectation agreement, you can't say, I didn't know. Okay. And it takes a savvy buyer to understand this. And if you have one of this buyer that doesn't really understand it, this may not be the house for them. Okay. Listing agent, if you have a buyer that approach you, that when you talk to the buyer's agent, it doesn't seem like they kind of understand the whole premise behind this, they may not be a good offer. Now, would you submit the offer? I would, for two reasons. One is to keep the short sale moving. And we know, and inform your sellers that we know that this short sale may potentially not work because the buyer may not be cooperative, or the expectation from the buyer is a lot different from what the seller can do. Okay. So once again, the repair part is workable. It just depends whether or not all party agree on what's workable. Okay. And also next, while you have a contract, please go ahead and get, and the attorney knows that for short sale, they gotta get prelim Alta or HUD. Alta is when it's involved long, HUD is a cash deal. Okay. Most of them understand what they need. A prelim title is going to be pulled, and work with a cooperative attorney, because not every attorney is willing to do that, because it does cost them some small monetary financial to pull those prelim titles. So, so you submit your whole entire package along with, and what you want to do, estimate closing minimum 30 to 45 days. 30 to is fast, just depending on how fast the seller's lender is responding back to you. If it takes them weeks to respond back to you, I would definitely do the prelim HUD for a 60-day projection from the day that you submit it, just to give that seller's lender some time to do their due diligence. Okay. If they don't like it, they'll let you know. They'll let you know you got to close earlier, which is fine. And the number will only be better for the seller or the bank versus delayed it because of property tax. Okay. So, and they usually have a perimeter, they know if they move your timeline, what have you. Most your bank will like to close within 30 days from the day they approve. But they know that if it's taking their department, or their department is not proficient in short sale, they may allow the 60 days. Just depends. So anyway, my recommendation typically is 45 days. And if the bank does, or 30 days, if we have one right now that's responding like Johnny on the spot. We call them, respond back within 24 hours, told us, and we submit the paperwork and had a couple of the signatures taken care of, and told us within a week that they sent an appraisal out. So that was pretty quick. So but the folks that do respond quickly, typically, 30 to 45 days. That's my recommendation. Understand in short sale, time is of essence, and multiple follow-up are required from the agents to seller's lender. And expectation timeline for buyer agent should be estimated with clear communication of any updates. So I'm working with one right now on my agent's behalf, and right now, if the seller's agent is not communicating, we communicate, just so we have an expectation, because the buyer's loan is locked. And every day that you delay, that lock may expire. If that's the case, then we need to re-strategize with the buyer and let them know what we need to do, whether or not to extend the rate lock or cancel this one out and get the next one. And right now, as the mortgage goes, their interest rate are looking a little bit better. So it may be better for him to not lock that rate in and just get a new one down the road. So we're still waiting at this point, and this one's taking about 2 weeks already. And we still don't have a timeline from them as far as when the appraisal's going out to the bank, of course, to do their own due diligence. So, and one thing that this particular buyer did on this particular one is that they knew there were repairs to be done. So they did the hold harmless, and in the letter from the seller's agent, we included the fact what is wrong with this property. One, to motivate the seller to move a little quicker, and two, let them know there is some cost already by the buyer fixing this property up, and that's a reason for the discounted price. So, once again, if you are unfamiliar with it, please consult with your broker, and let them know what is the circumstances, the premise for some of these things that you are going through, and they can help you write it up. Okay. Any questions so far?
Ming, I have a question in regards to compensation.
Okay.
Since the rules have changed, will the bank try to dictate anything as far as buyers' compensation goes?
So the bank look at all the financial in consideration. They know that no buyer's agent is going to do anything for free. Okay. And so that is part of your computation when you initially submit it. Typically, I'm not dictating what your percentage is. Let's say 3 and 3. As as long that you're not the actual buyer for the property, representing yourself as an agent, most likely the bank will agree to a 3%. Now, have they come back in the past, say 2.5? Absolutely. So then you will have to figure out whether or not, if your buyer is able to afford that 0.5% back to you, or you rebate it back to your buyer. But bank understands that how this works. I never have one that came back and said, because they look at your prelim alta, they know what's going in that number. And sometimes if they think the purchase value is way, way below what the value should have been, they will come back and say, no, instead of 365, your purchase price needs to be 380. And that's when you have a different conversation with your buyer and the seller's agent and everybody else to see whether or not that number is going to work. The bank does have the right to come back, said, no, we think 380 is the sweet spot. And they don't make those decisions out of spite, because what they do, they're calculating, all right, we're going to lose $35,000 with this sale. All right. Or we can foreclose it, hire an attorney, property reservation, minimum 6 months that we're not collecting. So they take all, and plus they got to pay a compensation when they list it, right? So they take all that in consideration and look at the numbers, see which one works the best. So for them, it's a numbers game, not a whole lot of emotional involvement in there. So what you try to perceive, if the house does have a lot of deferred maintenances, point those out, because when they send their appraiser out, they're going to be looking for those items. Good question.
Ming, question. If you are the buyer and if we are as an agent or the buyer on a home that's a short sale, you saying, is it okay to maybe do a referral to another agent? And then, so that the bank doesn't see that compensation?
So just so you know, the referral has nothing to do with the bank. For the bank, it's about what the buyer's agent is getting. And what your agreement with another agent is a whole different story. That makes sense?
It does that, but I just want to make sure we weren't breaching anything that it seemed as if we're not disclosing anything.
Now, license law require you to have the buyer sign off being referred out. There's nothing about, for a bank, once again, it's a numbers game. They're looking at the pure bottom number. What it's gonna cost in a short sale today with all the numbers, what's gonna cost them to foreclose it, taking 6 months off, plus hiring an agent, plus hiring an attorney, plus property preservation, winterization, all that good stuff. And also, if at one point we have a lot of squatter, you know, we all know when a house sits on the market, is not lived in, the house tends to deteriorate much faster than a property that's lived in and functioning. So, good question. But yeah, you definitely can refer it out to another agent. And the referrals between you and that agent, it has nothing to do with who's the actual buyer's agent. Okay. All right. This is one of the form that you will get. I blocked out some of the information here, so we don't know where it is. But as you can see, this is that particular bank's what they call arm length addendum. So only from complete forms of purchase offered on property. So you won't even get this. Sometimes the bank will send it out in advance. Sometimes they won't. It just depends who's in the loss mitigation department. So this typically require what we call wet signature. So this agent did it with electronic signature. I'm not sure that's going to fly. Okay. Most your bank wants a wet signature because they don't want any fraudulent thing going on. And it would need all your seller signature, your listing or seller agent, your seller's broker signature, your buyers, along with buyer's agent and their broker. Not only that, they want the attorney signature on this too. In different state, they are transaction facilitator and they're the escrow. And because we're escrow closing state, this is the one the attorney needs to wet sign it. Okay. Any question on this? This is a sample of what arm length addendum looks like.
When is that signed? At closing or prior to?
Prior. So when you submit the initial paperwork of the purchase and sale, you may get this back immediately after. Now, some banks will go ahead and send this when you start the negotiation on behalf of your seller, say, this is part of the form you need to fill out once you have an offer on this property. Different banks operate differently. Some like to be proactive while the other likes to be reactive. Any questions?
Gotcha.
Yeah, this one that I will highly suggest y'all. I know it's a pain in the butt because we don't like to run around when I can just send it to you electronically for signature. But I can tell you right now, most likely they'll kick that one back because it's not wet signature on the agents or the buyer seller.
So
And
they will not take a copy of they will not take the original wet signature. All of them need to be on the same exact.
well, you can have, so this is what you can do. You can have the seller and the seller agent and the seller broker sign off on it, right? Scan that to the buyer's agent, have the buyer agent have their broker sign, and then scan it to the attorney. Make sure you have a decent copy because by the time this gets back to the bank, sometimes it looks like it been run through the parking lot a couple times, but it does happen sometimes. But you do need to get the attorney sign off on this one too. And most of us have pretty great scanner. I have Adobe PDF in on my phone that I can just take, or I can take an image of it, send it, and it's a good image. Send it to the other party, um, and so when I receive it, even a JPEG, I can print it to PDF, right? And you print that out. So, that's why it looks like half the time I've been run to the parking lot a couple times. But other than that, you know, they do require, they'll tell you, what or not. Now, some bank may have gone a little more techie, and what they'll request is the verification of the document signature. Basically, they're checking to make sure the email's correct for the seller, the email's correct for the seller's agent, the seller broker, buyer agent, buyer broker, and the attorney. When you have, with all authentic sign and remind, you have that piece of certification tells you who signed it, what's the email, what day, what time. And some bank will take that along with this for electronic signature. It just depends on, they moving within time or not. And this is why, when y'all go to closing to attorneys, even the mail away, you can fax or scan over a copy of the wet signature, but it will not get dispersed until they have actually the physical original for attorney. But same thing here. They want a actual signature on this versus, just electronic signatures. Now, there are some lender now are looking at um, electronic signature for closings. So that's going to help speed up. But there's also some what they consider fraudulent stops that they put in place to make sure the seller is the seller, the buyer is the buyer who signed all these documentations. So, all right, cool. This is a sample of the arm length addendum you will get for short sale. All right, so here's the seller bank expectation. They want wet signature. Sometimes some bank will not take electronic. Buyer agent, when the buyer agent is a buyer or party purchase entity, buyer oftentimes will not give a compensation to the buyer agent when representing itself via entity or individual due to material relationship and the sale price. Typically, we're getting pretty good discount of fair market value. Work around, hire someone to write your offer. And once again, like Linda said, what happened to, what you guys do for referral doesn't matter. Okay, now there are some banks figure this out and they'll tell the buyer's agent there's no compensation. So y'all need to figure out what you want to do at that point. The potential may be there. Okay, but most banks are very lenient because they know that if they put this house back on the market, there is a compensation being paid out to the buyer's agent. Okay. Just make sure you're in constant communication. It is advisable to communicate with the asset manager on a weekly basis to coordinate a reasonable time of response. Bank will do its own appraisal to ensure the property that has been told about, what you told them about the property is exactly what it is. Like with this particular one that we knew that needs repair. Well, because the HVAC wasn't running in the basement, guess what happened in the basement? Anyone take a guess?
Mold.
Uh-huh. Thank you. You hit it. So, most, especially during hot summer month, and it's granted it's surface mold, but it's still mold. And so, what I recommend the buyer to do at the time was take image of the surface mold, but go in and clean it up because, any preservation you can do between the time of negotiation and the time of sale, is better for the buyer in the long run, but also inform them that if anything you do, you may not get it back if the bank decided they're not going to sell to you for whatever reason. And that's another conversation you have buyers if that's the case. So, but you make everybody very aware that there's no recourses. Okay. Time sensitivity. Bank will often impose a timeline that's reasonable but in a timeline manner with once a short sale has been approved. Make sure you have a strong buyer and that lender from the buyer side that will respond quickly, because not all lender are equal sometimes. And because they feel like this is short sale is going to be a little bit, so they won't do some of their due diligence up front when it comes to buyer's documentation. So just make sure buyer's agent, you do communicate with your buyer lender to make sure. And I know sometimes a lot of sellers agent feel like that's not my gig. Well, sometimes I feel like that is your gig, because if you want to ensure um, a smooth transaction, I definitely get the folks that are involved to make sure we're on the same expectation timeline. So, all right, cool. So it does take all to make it work. Return documents, request by the bank, weekly follow-up, and coordinate time and schedule with all parties. And that is short sale in a nutshell. Not very complicated, couple extra steps. Instead of just dealing with seller, you do have a bank. And it's like reading one of those offer from an investor. They have their own addendum, right? Here's what you can do, what you can't do, this is our expectation, blah, blah, blah. Same thing, short sale. Just follow it. If you don't understand it, please consult your broker, because they can help you along the way if you're confused about what some of the languages may be. So this is pretty much conclude my short sale, y'all. Any questions?
Yes.
Go.
When is too late to work with them? Or can you stop it by calling the attorney that's handling it, or just too when is
So
when is it too late?
I so if you're already being published on the newspaper, it's up to the short sale department, the bank, to see whether or not it's too late, for two reasons. Because they will look at it and say, okay, this is the number that we're currently already spending. If we proceed with the foreclosure, especially in a market where the turnaround is really slow, we might be better off stop the attorney right there. Okay, because there's typically a certain amount of fee that goes as each step is progressing, and take the short sale. Or they can look at it and say, this short sale offer is ridiculous. No, we're not going to do that.
So you basically need the offer if
You
it's like the
basically
last
on the
right
phone.
finna go to the courthouse or something like that. So you need an offer before you would list it, or you would just list it and send everything over to the bank and try to get an approval.
I would do it time in short sale times of essence.
Yeah.
It depends on the loss mitigation department and short sale department. What they will not accept. You may catch someone a good day and they're like, you know what, this is reasonable. And you may catch somebody say, you know what, and this. So when y'all submit an offer, make sure it's not a outrageous type of offer. What I mean by that is that because the sales circumstances and everybody's desperate and you're just trying to pacify a foreclosure, they can see that as well. The bank can see it, what you're doing, and they'll just say no. But if you submit a decent offer, reasonable offer, with the property condition the property currently is in, you're more likely going to have a yes. Is there an equity for the buyer? Always. And I have seen a short sale where the only thing the bank was paying was the compensation for the party, because the seller was able to basically break even with the sale price and the concession, but did not have enough money to pay the agent to do the transaction.
Got you. But I guess my question is, before taking a listing and they're very close to being foreclosed on, I need to call the bank with them on the phone and see if they will allow them to list it and give them some more time, or go ahead and get the listing agreement and send it over and see if I can get it extended out. It don't work like that.
So this okay, if I was doing it, I will secure the listing. I'll, I'll give the authorization to even talk to the bank first, have the seller write that immediately. Okay, send it to their department, call them,
Mm-hmm.
say, have you got the authorization? Typically, they can tell you whether or not they've received it. And let them know, so I understand that the advertisement's been done on this property and we're going to courthouse next Tuesday. Is there any way? And this is where you're gonna have a conversation with them. They can tell you whether or not it's too far gone, or they'll say, do you have an offer? And if you don't have an offer, it's one of those things, you can do a lot of
Okay.
work in
I
and
understand.
to
I
get a
got you.
and what happened is that if you list it immediately, even if it does go foreclosure status, you guys know you can withdraw from MLS based on that and not being fined for that withdrawal fee when it goes in foreclosure. So it depends on what your motivation is, how quickly you want to act, whether or not you want to take the time and do some work and hoping that it becomes a transaction or not. So it's a numbers game and depends on which asset bank you're talking to. Some are more reactive versus proactive. Anybody else have any other questions? I do see a short sale as being one of the, I hate to say this, upcoming items. Just because during pandemic, if y'all remember, there was no place for anybody to go. So the curb appeal house, the house was very well maintained. The interest rate was super low. Um, and after the pandemic, everybody went and started charging a credit card. We probably got the highest right now credit card debt that we have ever incurred for a long time. So are you going to have people in that situation? Yes, because they charge so high to where they can't afford to pay their credit card bill and the house note. And I know it sounds silly. A lot of time people like, "Oh, well, I would rather have my four walls, but sometimes that just don't happen. Life happens sometimes. No judgment zone. I'm just saying. It's just that people make decisions based on what their needs are at the time.
Ming, hi. Do
Hey,
you,
sorry.
hi there.
You
Do
saw
you,
that.
I know I heard about the wet signatures. If they don't tell me, I won't tell them. We'll see about that portion of it.
Yeah, and like
Um,
I said, sometimes easier to be proactive, so that way, when they did ask, you already have it in hand.
okay, good suggestion. Now, do they still send out a 1099 for the deficit amount of the short sale to the
They used
buyer? I mean,
to,
to the seller?
they used to. I am not sure on the legal aspect of that right now. You may want to Google that. That's something that I haven't thought of. I know in the past it was, and it became such a noise in the background. What I mean by that is that if the seller can't afford a house, and now you put a tax burden on them, and now
Right.
you put them in even further burden by issuing them a $50,000 1099, which they can't pay that tax. So I know that was due away at one point. It depends on how the market is. Some may not, but I have not. They started doing that during down market, but I also know they took that away.
Okay.
So I don't know what it is today. Definitely Google it. Um, and I think some of the standard answer would be that is up to the bank's prerogative, or they just write it off as a net loss. So
Okay.
some
Okay.
banks will write it off as a net loss and what have you. They're very creative in their way of doing things in the back end. So I really don't know that answers. I apologize.
Okay, one other question. Is it okay to put in the contract that the due diligence period doesn't start until you receive the approval?
Yeah, let me show you something really quick. Let me stop sharing real quick. There's my share button. Let's go to, oh, this page. Let me just stop sharing really quick.
Ming, while you're answering that, if we do not start, I guess we got to be careful how we put that in there because otherwise, how do they get the earnest money back? Because
Yeah.
if the due diligence has not started, and am I saying that right? You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
you're fine. So I want to show you this. This will answer a lot of y'all's question here. I'm trying to pull up an MLS right now, so if you're wondering. So if you go to transaction desk here, let me share it again. Let's see, there you are. Okay, so if you go in here, so when you're in transaction desk and move this thing around, it's driving me nuts. Maybe. If you search short sale, here's your short sales contingency. That's for the GAR, and there's one for RE as well. I'm just gonna pull up the GAR form. The way the short sale exhibit is written, here's the terms. Okay, just remember any exhibit you have to a purchase and sale is a contingency. So until that contingency is satisfied, this is what I consider optional contract, not a true solid contract. And one of the things is here, it says right terminate. You have a right to terminate. Let's say your buyer has a deadline of 60 or 90 days. If I don't get an approval within 60 days, because my buyer still needs 30 days to approve, right? I can terminate, okay? Earnest money. Buyer agreed to pay holder earnest money reference here within X amount of day from the day seller provides a written evidence from seller's lender. So until we get an approval from the seller's lender, earnest money is not due. And also talking about earned length transaction right here. It just has either is earned length or not. If not, then you have to do full disclosure. Earned length is relationship between the seller and buyer. Okay. And also we talked about why we're in short sale. Okay. It's basically take a reduction of purchase price because we all know there's not enough money to satisfy the mortgage. And also release seller from any claim, cause, action, suit by any deficiency or monetary amount. So this does help protect your seller a little bit. And as far as the due diligence, and also the appraisal financing, I will highly recommend you put a special stip in there, all party agree. None of the contingency starts. And you can put in parentheses, earnest money if you want to double make sure the earnest money is not in there. Due diligence, financing, appraisal until buyer's broker receive a written notice from the seller's broker that a short sale has been approved by the seller's lender. And that will protect you from anything. And I honestly don't like earnest money going back and forth a lot, just because you don't even know if the short sale is going to be approved, right? So this address, and this is what I mean, y'all need to put short sale contingency as part exhibit, because this talks about earnest money right here and what short sale means. That answer? That help?
Yes, yes, yes. I just wanted to make sure that was correct
That
in
is
doing
correct.
so. Because, we still get the emails about the earnest money isn't there.
Normally, when we see a short sale, when we know it's a short sale exhibit, so what happened is that when we have a file that doesn't indicate it's a short sale, then yes, we will probably count you on the earnest money. But if you have a special language in there that talks about short sale, and then we would basically tried to move that out about 60 days, just because we know typically that is, that is what it's gonna take.
Thank you.
sometime. Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else have any questions?
Hi, Ming, it's Carla.
Hey,
And it's been a learning experience with this short sale, but will we get this slide? Will you send this to us
yeah, I'll send a
on the
slide to
short
you
sale?
guys.
Okay.
Actually, I'll post it in the back end in the reference section, if that's okay. And it'll have a title called Short Sale Presentation 2025.
Okay. Thank you.
But y'all just, when you look at your reference section, Neil, I'll send you a copy so you can forward it to your agent as well. Anybody that has a different one, just email me. My email is Ming, M-I-N-G, at maximumpartners.com. So I'm gonna put that in chat really quick. So that way you can send me a notice that you would like a copy of the slide. Okay? Anybody have any It's not that difficult, you guys. It's about following another person's addendum or instruction, but time is of essence on this one, just because if you're trying to beat the clock, like Dwayne say, stop the foreclosure, then you need to be Johnny on the spot and take care of it immediately. And it's a lot of communication because sometimes seller will get confused about certain things. And if you have a seller buyer that are confused about short sale, my recommendation is after the conversation, send an email to them for our discussion today on blah, blah, blah. I tell my agents this all the time so they can cover their asset, because when it comes to money, some people have a very short-term memory, and it's easier to point a finger at someone else and admit, okay, I didn't read it, or okay, I didn't quite understand, okay, I didn't, whatever it is. All right, anybody got any other questions? So I got
I do have.
number.
I have one. I have one.
Okay.
When it comes down to that tax part, how will we know that the seller will not be charged, and can we request that the seller not be charged?
I'm sorry, repeat that again.
When it comes down to the tax part
Uh-huh.
of them getting a 1099,
Mm-hmm.
how will we know if the seller will be given a 1099,
That's a
and
question you
can
can
we
ask up front.
request it that the seller do not be given a 1099? Can we request that?
Yes, right from we need to start talking to the loss mitigation department.
Okay. And then one more question I had in regards to the wet signatures. Do you
Mm-hmm.
have any that's generally given to you from the loss mitigation department of that bank? Or is that something that we need to have in our arsenal just to be ready because we know that they're going to ask for it?
I'm sorry, what was the item you were asking?
In regards to having wet signatures,
Yep,
is that something that is given to you from the bank, or is that something that we need to have in our arsenal because we know it's going to be requested just to have
that's
up
from
front?
the bank. That's strictly from the bank.
Okay.
So I just Google online, is the seller, will seller get 1099 on a short sale in Georgia? Now, this is what it tells me. Yes, the seller will see a 1099. But as a tax accountant, I can tell you right now, there's probably different way. I'm not a tax accountant. Neil knows a great one, and I've been talking to her. She's great. Anyways, so they may have a different way of relieving that income. So that is a tax accountant issue, not a real estate issue, if that make any sense.
Gotcha.
Okay, there's a lot of videos. Matter of fact, there's one in 2024. And it talks about taxes. So rather make you the expert in this field, send them the link and let them review and advise them to consult a tax accountant for the short sale.
Gotcha.
Okay. Because once again, different bank act differently. So, like I said, internet is a great source to go. But understand it's an algorithm. It's gonna take whatever is being commented out there and put it online. So if you really want to know the truth, talk to the loss mitigation department and talk to the tax accountant because they're the one that filed taxes at the year end. And I want to say that there's something around it, just because I can't fathom a client losing a house, get taxed for a $50,000 and have no way of paying for it, especially in the position they're in. But once again, I don't know that for a fact. Just putting it out there. Consult CPA. Anybody else? All right, cool. Well, thank y'all very much for attending another mastermind. We appreciate you guys. Love the feedback. And once again, have any friends or you would like to invite to the session, we will encourage it. It's about knowing what you know and making sure that you know what to expect and at least have a way of referring to an expert to where you are a helpful, reliable source for them. And Gail, really quick, I will upload that slide in the reference section of People's Pipeline. It will be called Short Sale Presentation 2025. All right, guys. Thank y'all very much. If you have no more other questions, love y'all. See you next Monday and have a wonderful day.